Quagsire is a top 10 Pokemon design of all time, and you can fight me on that. Oh, it was also the culprit of the Agility Pass ban in GSC Underused. Quagsire is one of the most bizarre Pokemon in GSC Underused. When first looking at it, it might seem like it would be a defensive setup Pokemon, using its amazing typing and decent defensive stats to eventually sweep with your belly drum. Well, if Quagsire can do this, and in fact it's the primary use of it nowadays, it took people years to realise this. People saw defensive setup Quagsire as a largely inconsistent gimmick for most of GSC Underused's history. GSC-EU is far more fast paced than GSC-OU, and much more limited in viable uses of Rapid Speed and Heal Bell. Quagsire is incredibly slow, and it can't use Rest Talk effectively if it wanted to use a sweeping set. The prominence of Pokemon like Granbull and Blossom who could effectively check Quagsire didn't help its case either. Instead, Quagsire took on a much different role. And in this role, it was truly terrifying. In this role, it terrorized the metagame for several years. In this stupid ass role, Quagsire was so effective that it ended up ruining GSC Underused, and a complex ban had to be put in place because of it. And what was that role? It was none other than the role of an Agility Pass recipient. Bellydrum Quagsire was by far the most dangerous recipient of Agility in GSC Underused. After being baton passed in Agility from either Girafarig or Scyther, Quagsire could use Bellydrum and then instantly end the game a majority of the time. Quagsire and Agility Pass heroes most commonly ran Earthquake, Hidden Power Rock, and Sludge Bomb as its attacking moves, because of these three moves, barely anything could stand up to it when set up correctly. A +6 attack and +2 speed Quagsire would proceed to outspeed and OHKO every single Pokemon in GSC Underused, with very few exceptions. Gligar could live +6 Hidden Power Rock and then KO Quagsire with Counter. Crobat could outspeed +2 speed Quagsire and Haze. Electro could outspeed +2 Quagsire as well and explode on it. And Slowbro could just barely tank a +6 Earthquake and retaliate back. Yes, a mere 4 Pokemon could take on a +6 speed Quagsire. Gligar and Crobat are fairly mediocre Pokemon that are difficult to fit on teams too. Unless you have one of those very few Pokemon, then you might as well forfeit when Quagsire successfully sets up Bellydrum at +2 speed. Despite having to sacrifice 50% of its health to Bellydrum, Quagsire was fairly reliable at setting up due to its amazing typing. A large contributing factor to this is how Quagsire synergizes with a Girafarig, the main Agility Pass user. For example, electric types attacks are incredibly common in GSC Underused, and strong electric types like Ampharos and Magneton are some of the few Pokemon who could threaten Girafarig while not being pressured back themselves. However, Girafarig could easily pass Agility to Quagsire against them, and then the game would likely be over. Girafarig could also pass Amnesia to Quagsire, which would let it set up against Pokemon like Mr. Mime and Hypno with increased ease. Light Screen and Reflect were similarly helpful in assisting Quagsire. Quagsire's fantastic typing is its main weapon when setting up, because it enabled it to set up on a ton of common Pokemon. Nidoqueen, Scyther, Lantern, Hypno, Electabuzz and Blastoise are all among the Pokemon that Quagsire could take an attack from and then set up on. Quagsire's decent defensive stats also meant very few Pokemon could deal over 50% to it with neutral attacks. This meant that if Girafarig baton passed Agility to Quagsire, then you'd better hope the Pokemon you switched in had a grass attack or something like Explosion, or else you're just fucked. In addition, Quagsire was always paired with fellow Bellydrum user Politoed, who could set up on Pokemon that Quagsire could not. While Politoed OHKOs far less Pokemon than Quagsire can, Politoed's access to Lovely Kiss meant it could sleep something and then set up on them. This is especially useful against the likes of Blossom and Jumpluff. Politoed also resisted water, unlike Quagsire, which could let it set up easier against Pokemon like Omastar and Slowking. Politoed took advantage of the things Quagsire couldn't set up on. Quagsire itself also provided a utility for Agility Pass teams. Without Quagsire, they would likely be instantly destroyed by any halfway decent electric type. I'm very glad I no longer have to play guessing games of death with baton pass teams in GSC Underused. If you made one tiny misplay against them, chances are your team is getting run over by Quagsire. Agility Pass teams were incredibly broken and unhealthy for reasons that I plan to cover soon, and Quagsire was a huge contribution to that brokenness. Agility Pass teams used to be relatively tame, but eventually they got optimized, and people realised how broken they could get. During the summer of 2022, GC Neos was absolutely horrible because everyone was spamming the most infamous Agility Pass team: Lead Girafarig, Quagsire, Politoed, Scyther, Granbull, and Haunter. God, I still see it in my nightmares. There were so many tournament games around this time where someone would just pass Agility to Quagsire and the game would just fucking end. Quagsire is just way too overpowered when set up correctly, and it isn't hard to get to that point because of how effective Girafarig is at passing and Quagsire is at setting up Belly Drum. As a matter of fact, banning Quagsire was a legitimate option for solving the Agility Pass problem. Just banning Agility plus Baton Pass in the same set was definitely the best option though, and eventually Agility plus Baton Pass were banned from being used on the same set. This meant that the Girafarigs, Quagsires, and Politoed's decade-long streak of terror over JC Unused finally came to an end. So, without Agility Pass, is there any hope for Quagsire in GC Unused? The answer is yes. Even before Agility Pass was banned, people were using Belly Drum and even Curse Quagsire on defensive teams to solid success. Quagsire's fantastic typing and decent defensive stats let it answer numerous top Pokemon, such as Quillfish, Haunter, Electabuzz, Nidoqueen, and Lantern. Quagsire can then pose an offensive threat with Belly Drum. Ground is an incredibly potent attacking type in GC Unused, since so many teams stack Pokemon weak to ground, like Haunter and Quillfish on offensive teams. Grass type attacks are fairly uncommon in GC Unused, and the most used grass type, Jumpluff, doesn't even use grass moves, so Quagsire could just stay in and chip it with Hidden Power Rock. Earthquake and Hidden Power Rock have perfect coverage in GC Unused, and often hit more than half of the opposing team for super effective damage. Gyarados is most offensive team's flying type of choice, due to its excellent matchup against Piloswine, and Quagsire could take advantage of this. Gyarados doesn't threaten Quagsire too badly, and Quagsire can then chip it down with Hidden Power Rock. Gyarados being chipped down can then be capitalized on by Pokemon like Scyther. The defensive teams this Quagsire set is used on pair it with both Rapid Spin and Paralysis support in order to maximize its sweeping potential. While Quagsire does check many common Pokemon, its speed is pitiful, and it struggles against common Pokemon like Granbull and Piloswine. While it does only have one weakness, as well as an incredibly useful electric immunity, Quagsire has few useful resistances beyond that. It's also worth noting that Quagsire, with Belly Drum and Rest, absolutely destroy a stall. They can barely hurt it back, and Quagsire can just destroy them with its +6 attacks. Common attacks like Piloswine's Earthquake and Blastoise's Surf just do just enough that Quagsire doesn't want to set up on them, thus it needs support to be truly useful. Quagsire can also experiment with curse sets, which take longer to get going but are safer than Belly Drum. The usage of curse does let Quagsire set up easier against Pokemon like Scyther, Dodrio, and Piloswine, which improves Quagsire's matchup against offensive teams. It does take longer for Curse Quagsire to become threatening, but it's still a decent option. Rest Talk Quagsire is another option on Quagsire, but it's largely not worth using. Rest Talk Quagsire is outclassed by Rest Talk Piloswine, who is much stronger and superior against special attackers, like Mr. Mime. It is a superior mixed attacking wall all around. The only advantage Quagsire has is its lack of a water weakness, which makes it superior against Lantern and Gyarados. Piloswine's advantages are far more useful, however, and you can prep for Lantern and Gyarados with other Pokemon. So yeah, Quagsire went from ravaging GC Unused on Baton Pass teams to being a boring defensive setup Pokemon on stall teams. GC Quagsire truly is one of the strangest Pokemon in competitive Pokemon history. Quagsire is decent in GCOU and even viable in Ubers due to its defensive typing. When we get to Quagsire's home tier of UU, though, its set spends multiple years destroying everything when used on Baton Pass teams, and eventually it gets Agility plus Baton Pass banned from the fucking metagame. The Waterfish Pokemon truly has come a long way, and only time will tell what its next move will be.